British Prime Minister Theresa May's Conservative Party avoided a wipeout in London local elections and eked out gains in Brexit-supporting regions elsewhere, denting the opposition Labour Party's hopes of a big win. The elections are viewed as a gauge of public support for Mrs May as she faces a possible revolt in Parliament over her strategy for leaving the European Union. Partial results showed Mrs May was likely to avoid the kind of widespread losses that would dramatically weaken her authority over Conservative MPs ahead of key tests of her plans to pull out of the EU customs union. The Conservative Party has been reminded tonight that the electorate that it now has is disproportionately a Leave electorate, polling expert John Cortis told the BBC. Therefore, above all, it seems to me that what the Conservative Party has to be able to do in the coming weeks and months is to deliver on Brexit in a way that will satisfy the aspirations of Leave voters, he said. Against a backdrop of heightened expectations for the Labour Party, the ballot also showed the limitations of its recent resurgence under Jeremy Corbyn. Mrs May's party held on to control of Wandsworth Council, a low-tax Conservative stronghold since the time of former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. The council had been one of Labour's more ambitious targets in yesterday's vote and one it campaigned heavily to win. There, at the moment, isn't really very much for the Labour Party to crow about. It basically has come away frankly empty-handed relative to the expectation that it at least helped to build up, Mr Cortis said. Voting decides more than 4,400 council seats, determining the makeup of 150 local government authorities. The Conservatives also held the symbolic Council of Westminster in the heart of London's political district, indicating that the final scale of losses in the capital would come in at the lower end of the predicted range. Despite retaining overall control, the Conservatives lost individual seats in Westminster and Wandsworth. The Tories held Kensington and Chelsea in spite of fierce criticism of the council in the wake of the Grenfell tragedy. Outside London, Labour did become the largest party in Trafford and won back Plymouth from the Tories. There was good news for the Liberal Democrats in the form of Richmond upon Thames, where they took seats from the Tories and regained control of the council, on the back of the Lib Dems' strong Remain agenda. For UKIP, the night brought considerable losses. A collapse in the party vote played well for the Conservatives, though, who seem to have picked more votes as a result of it. Ruling parties typically suffer losses at local elections, and polls ahead of the vote predicted a bad night in London for the Conservatives after 8 years in power. Mrs May is also negotiating an exit from the EU that 60% of the capital rejected at the 2016 Brexit referendum. Results elsewhere in London's 32 boroughs showed the forecast swing to Labour in the capital had materialised, although not strongly enough to inflict the heavy losses that would pose a serious headache for Mrs May. The overall result is not expected until 6 p.m. this evening. Additional reportant Fiona Mitchell.